Maybe. Welcome to Collaboration Conversations. It always takes so long to get this live, it makes me crack up before we get there. This is Collaboration Conversations. I'm Regina Partain Bergman, I see it just blew me away waiting so long. I am the CEO and founder of Bridgeport Strategy, and we serve entrepreneurs and CEOs, helping them to exponentially increase their profits and to build a business that can run without them. I am delighted today to bring you a new guest co host and the panelists that he has brought to the show. So I want to quickly introduce my guest co host, Pete Mastin. Welcome, Pete. First of all, thank you for being our co host today, for agreeing to do that. Appreciate it so much. And Pete is the CEO of Learnie, and I am going to let him tell you more about that. Pete, would you share with us, please, a bit about your journey getting to where you are now, who you serve,
Sure.
and why?
Yeah. So thanks, Virginia, for having us. First of all, really appreciate it. The concept of collaboration is very much near and dear to my heart. And in fact, it's really the foundation of why we started Learning. We are experts in training platforms and learning platforms. And what we had noticed is that there's a complete lack of collaboration in most corporate workforce training. So we wanted to build something that was very collaborative in nature. And so we built Learnie about 3-4 years ago. And it allows companies to engage, to create engagement and to create that micro learning at a fraction of the cost of traditional training, but also with much higher engagement. Think, TikTok style learning for the kind of new generation. And Learning does help organizations share knowledge, and it results in a collaborative learning experience, which ultimately benefits the organization. So that's why we built the product. As and why I'm very much excited about the concept of collaboration that you're bringing to the table here today.
Awesome. As you were saying that, I was thinking, oh man, you and I have to sit down and have another conversation because some things have changed in my realm that I think you would be a great collaborative partner for. So we'll have that conversation, Pete. See, collaborating already. I love it. Pete, would you please introduce each of your panelists and have them share with us who they serve, why that's important to them, and a bit about their journey getting to this place?
Absolutely. And I had to put a lot of thought into it when you challenged me to come up with some collaborators. And so I sort of broke my collaborators into three buckets of collaborators. One set of collaborators are people that are helping us collaborate on the product itself. And some of these people, you're going to know who you are when I tell you about the categories. But they're people who are stretching the bounds of the product and helping us figure out the best direction and features. And there's no better way to grow a product than through your partners. The second set of collaborators are almost more personal growth collaborators that I've met and we have regular meetings and talk about our businesses and how they're going, and trade ideas back and forth. And again, you two probably know who you are. And lastly, are collaborators that we've had that help us not just in the product side, but in the business side, to think about stretching the bounds of our business. So I'll start on the product side first. I'd like to introduce Dusty Burton, who is the ed tech coordinator for the Aurora school system. And Dusty, can you tell us a little bit about your journey on how you've gotten here and sort of your thoughts on collaboration and what you're trying to do in Aurora?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Pete and Regina. So I've spent 21 years in public education. 16 of those years were in the classroom as a social studies teacher. No jokes about I did it just to be a coach. I did coach too, but anyway. So about 6 years ago, I transferred into the central office role that I'm kind of in now, which is the coordinator role in charge of all educational technology in Aurora. Collaboration is an interesting one because not everybody has the same ideas about it, especially in terms of those at the central office. Some people feel like collaboration is get everybody in a room and I'm going to dictate to you what collaboration is. And then there's the true collaboration, which is people sitting down and allowing everyone's leadership voice to come out, and the feeling of empowerment of that collaboration. So one of the things that we started talking about really this time last year in Aurora was how can we start to elevate teacher voice in Aurora. And one of the things that I've always been passionate about, or at least since I've been in this role, is this idea of like a micro PD, a micro learning. And so that's kind of what led us to partner with Pete and Learnie, is this idea of potentially allowing others to input their voice into the system, let them show their expertise, let them show their collaboration. And we're well on our way, and it's looking great and super, super excited. If you see my background, these are the tiles that we've made in Learnie about the micro PDs, and the collaboration that's just starting. We're just getting started with it.
Thanks, Des. Appreciate it. I love your background, by the way. So the next person I want to call out is Wynn Krog, who's works with a company that's also using Learnie. And Wynn, tell us, and don't just tell us about the Learnie stuff. I want you to talk a little bit about your background too, because you have a fascinating journey on how you got into your current role. And Wynn really drives the learning innovation within her company.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wen Krog. I am currently the program manager for the learning division of Drive Academy, which is actually a subsidiary of Speak Now. I started as my journey was basically I started as a 1099. Someone came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to be able to build a VR experience that will help teach our seekers to get up on a roof before they actually have to get up on a roof." So I worked with, I'm on the media side, so 3D assets. I needed a developer. So I engaged an old friend and colleague from the school I went to, and we started this project. COVID kind of put the stopper on it for a while, but then after COVID stopped, we started the project again, and I was hired in 2020. And so I once we actually got a initial product started, so that they could see it and test it, then I was promoted to product owner for XR team. And they kind of put me in with the learning division because obviously teaching was what our application was for. The simulation was to help teach those seekers what they needed to know before they got on the roof. And then eventually, I was asked to help because I also have a background. I'm an adjunct professor for 3D and animation. And so I have a history of being able to teach. So they asked me if I wanted to be the program manager for Drive Academy, which was a new company they were starting up, which would focus not only on training our seekers, but also sharing our information with external users or external customers. And we had several initiatives that were given to us at the beginning, I believe it was at the beginning of last year. Might have been in the middle of last year. One of those initiatives was to incorporate AI into our seeker platform. So we have our own proprietary app that our seekers use. And so we needed to incorporate the ability to have the learners in the app click on an information and search for just a specific nugget of information. And then that is actually what started us looking for a platform that could easily lead us to being able to develop that. So one of my coworkers suggested that I talk to Pete, and pretty much the rest is history.
Thanks, Wynn. I appreciate it. And well, there's more history to be made, in my opinion. So the next two people I want to introduce are actually fellow CEOs of their own respective companies. And I lean on them for sanity advice because as sometimes when you're doing this job, you you just kind of go, oh my gosh, am I crazy? And so then I'll pick up the phone and I'll call Scott Landum. And Scott and me have actually, I think I've known Scott as longer than anybody on this call. We've been beating our heads together for a number of years at this point. But Scott, can tell them a little bit, if you would, about your company and what you got, Common Caches, and what you do. And you've got the floor.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, everyone. So we're a small software company, and we build file sharing software for a kind of data known as digital evidence. So that's a lot of it's video, a lot of it's cell phone extracts. It comes from the public sector side, law enforcement, prosecutors, task forces. Comes from private sector. There's a lot of cameras, a lot of places. I'll just give you an example. So if you capture something on your phone, it's just data. If there's some investigation or incident that you're aware of and you upload it to a platform like ours, it becomes what's known as digital evidence. When it's actually handed off to the police and it goes onto their systems, it's called something else. So there's a lot of different folks that are involved in the world that we live in, including the last industry is not for profit. So, for example, we're part of a very large, led by someone else, effort focused on human trafficking. And what we found in this space was the justice system is a very technology laggard industry, as it were. There's a lot of USBs and hard drives, a lot of physical media that are used to store and share information. People will literally bag and tag hard drives and put them on a shelf. And that makes collaboration, or really just basic information sharing, that much more difficult. We have customers that before they bought our software, they would literally drive out somewhere with a USB to go get information. There was no live, there was no back and forth. It was really just more of a contribution network up. But when you talk to folks, especially prosecutors or any folks that are trying to put a case together, there's multiple sources of data, and they come from different devices, and they come from different locations, and they come from different software. And it just, practically speaking, makes it very difficult to cross all those silos and get all that information into one place, so you can start doing the more advanced collaboration on an investigation, multiple departments, et cetera. But a lot of the folks that we talk to in our world, they're even one step earlier than that. They're just trying to get stuff online in the first place and get over some of these data silos. So that's who we are and what we sell to. But very quickly, because I think it's an interesting story, how we came to be here, and it's just two of us. I'm the business guy. My business partner, Eric, is the technical guy. I grew up outside of Boston. So I grew up on the route of the Boston Marathon. So when the marathon bombing happened, even though we're living in Virginia at the time, that was a very personal event, more than the abstract national tragedy. I know that stretch of Boylston Street. I had friends who had a shelter in place. Where it turned from more of a personal sort of thing to a professional interest was when I read the after action report from either the FBI or DOJ. And they were talking about the challenges that people in Boston who had imagery on their phone, and they were trying to get it to the FBI. And they had a website to upload tips, and it crashed, and people were handing off their phone to the FBI, and folks in my world know the story. They were flying the phones down to Quantico every night, and there were hundreds of people sitting inside of an unheated warehouse, just going through the phones, trying to pull the evidence out. So that was a long time ago. We knew the amount of digital evidence was going to grow over time. We knew that the justice system writ large is very large and complex, and there's a lot of stakeholders. But that really ended up driving where we are now. Is that basic? There's a lot of folks in the justice system. Sometimes they need to share, sometimes they don't. They need an easy button to do it, but needs to be able to stand up in court. So that's what we ended up developing and we brought to market. So hopefully that kind of covers where we came from and what we're doing.
Yeah, that was
amazing.
Great. Thanks. Well, the next one is Kathy Houlihan. She's actually got a product in the ed tech space as well. We ran into each other, not as competitors. We actually service different markets, and we've been collaborating, trying to figure out how we can maybe work together on some projects. But Kathy, tell them a little bit about Dream to Career and what your vision of that is.
Yeah, thanks, Pete and Regina. It's great to have the opportunity to be with all of you here today to talk about the work-learn problem, which is really how we define the situation, and Unfortunately, just as Scott was explaining, everything kind of does exist in a silo. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe that everything, is connected, that we need to stop teaching individuals to make the widget and start to think about the human experience. And just like Pete had mentioned, the shared learning experience, the opportunity that TikTok brings to the idea of bringing ideas together. Unfortunately, there's no education that's really going on TikTok. And we've got to start to look for ways to provide shared learning experiences that are other than the news, and so what we've developed is what's called HIF logic. And what it basically does is it breaks down the 1,100 or so jobs that have been identified by the Department of Labor into the 16 career clusters that have been identified by the Department of Education into basically 6 facets that allow us to talk about things like protection and, education, as Dusty was mentioning, giving the educators a voice. Twice a year, they have the opportunity to kind of get involved in the discussion. And this way, we can create a community of learning that is much more effective. Little about my background: I worked in higher education for over 20 years, and I left to start my business. I thought my husband was going to divorce me, because who leaves a position like that? But we've got to solve this problem, this work-learn problem, and it only comes through collaboration, because there's so much information that we could be sharing, but we don't do it effectively. And so that's really where Dream to Career is coming from. We're trying to create synergies between workforce and education and help businesses use education to attract, retain, and inspire their workforce. Thanks for having me here today.
I love it, Kathy.
Awesome.
I love your mission. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so the last 2 people I'm going to introduce were people that helped me grow the idea of our business. And I saw Derek smirk when Kathy said that nobody learns anything on TikTok. I will say, if you watch Derek, you learn stuff on TikTok. and so let me tell you about Derek. We were looking to expand our business into the solar industry, right? And so, where do you go? You go look on LinkedIn, you look on YouTube, you look on TikTok. And we found Derek, and we reached out to him because he is an expert in solar, and he helped us really envision how our product could be used in the space. And we've actually won a bunch of business. I don't even know if Derek knows this, but we've actually won a decent amount of business in the solar industry based on, I think, a lot of his advice and help and content creation. So Derek, take it away. Tell them about Solar Boy. Tell them about yourself. Go for it. And you're muted.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. Thank you, Regina, for hosting this. That's cool. I hadn't heard that the success that you guys have had so far in the solar field, but that's awesome to hear. My whole thing as the Solar Boy is I have knowledge that I want to get to everybody else in the field as much as possible in as clear of a way, in as much of a digestible way as possible. So I've been in the solar field for 10 years, since 2014 was when I got started, and I was an electrician before that. So I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to electrical, and there's, a lot of resources for electrical out there, like just general, commercial, residential stuff. But solar in general is a very nascent field. So even as it has been blossoming over the last 20 years, it's still pretty nascent in the grand scheme of things. So my goal is to package as much as I have to be able to share with as many people as possible, because we are hitting a huge economic turning point in the solar industry as we're pushing to get more renewables. We're trying to expand our workforce, expand our expertise, design the best systems we possibly can. And being a maintenance technician now, I've been a maintenance technician for the last 6 to 8 years. I get to see how solar systems fail, and the things that are not what the salesmen are used to seeing, or they just don't have that knowledge. They're there at the beginning of the system, but not usually at the end of the system. So I aim to provide a holistic view of the life of a system and how we can best set these things up for success and educate customers. And I got started on TikTok because it was a great way to hone the craft of making videos and making my words as succinct as possible. So I'm not like rambling on for, hours and hours, in front of, some presentation. But at that time, TikTok was limited to a minute or 3 minutes. And so really forces you to whittle down your words to the most important possible. And that's where I sort of cut my teeth. And that's what I appreciate about Learnie as a platform as well, because they really focus on trying to get your content to be small, and really forces you to edit yourself and get the most important and most interesting things in there. So it's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Derek. That was excellent, and a nice plug for Learnie too. I appreciate that. And last and absolutely not least, Carrie McDevitt, who I call our B Corp Sherpa. For those that don't know, we're a certified B Corp, very proudly. And Carrie is actually who led us through the process. And for those again that don't know, it's reasonably complicated, and you need someone to help you in that process. And Carrie helped us really grow, especially in the early days of the company. That was a big accomplishment for us. And it's certainly something we remain very proud of and continue to, wear on our sleeve. But Carrie, tell them a little bit about yourself and a little bit about, Impact Growth Partners and what you guys do. And I'll shut up and let you do that now.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Regina. Nice to meet everybody. It's so funny you say last but not least. I'm actually the youngest of 8 children, so it's always like last but not least. My parents used to always say that, so it's close to my heart. So I am Carrie McDevitt. I live in Connecticut, but I work with companies nationally as well as in Canada through the rigorous what's called B Corp certification process. So I was so happy that Learnie came to me actually and was interested in becoming a B Corp. At that time, they were a startup. So we worked on what was called pending B Corp certification for startups. And the beauty of that, and I think of my work with all my clients as pure collaboration, because I learn as much about different industries, and hopefully my clients learn as well about the process and what it means to be both socially and environmentally impactful in a positive way. So basically, B Corp certification is that. It basically sort of the mantra of the B Corp movement is business as a force for good, that business can be both profitable and also consider people, planet, and purpose. So that's the whole idea. So it was great going through actually with Learnie as a startup. I believe that the assessment, which is the actual tool that one uses to go through to, that you need to go through to become certified, basically provided a nice roadmap for Learnie as far as even like a business plan, thinking about social impact, thinking about their give back, how much they're going to give back to nonprofit organizations. And so we sort of went through that together, and they did that. Then we let the business run for 12 months, and we went back and then had to reflect on what they actually did. And they did really well. They became verified by B Lab, which is a nonprofit governing body that oversees the certification, and they became fully certified. So I'm really proud of being affiliated with Learnie and all my other clients. I've been doing this now since just before COVID. I started February of 2020. Which could have been daunting, but actually we became quite busy during the COVID times because, we all know we're in a climate crisis. There were also a lot of issues surrounding, diversity, equity, inclusion, and inequality during that time, whether it be George Floyd incident or what have you. So I think a lot of businesses sort of stopped and really paused to think about how they could improve and basically be better and do business as a force for good. And I always say I have the best job ever because I work generally with founders who who are just very conscientious and want to do better for all stakeholders, including their workers, whether it be the community, it could be they're concerned about who they purchase from as far as their suppliers, that they're concerned about the environment. So it's really comprehensive, and I feel like I'm lucky because I work with nice people who want to do better. So including Pete and his team.
I'm the worst of the bunch. What are you talking about, Carrie?
It was quite a motley crew, but it was fun.
Okay.
What a great group of folks. Excellent job, Pete, on bringing together the panel. And I love how you've broken them into these 3 layers. And I think that's a perfect jumping off place for us in terms of how have you brought together these 3 layers of collaborators that you've identified here with these 3 groups? Can you see how bringing them together to collaborate, what kind of a difference would that make? What would be the impact of that if we each did something like that in our businesses? I think that'd be a great place to start the discussion. And so please feel free to unmute yourselves and just join in on the discussion. Yes, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start. I mean, it was I actually had other categories in the stratification that I thought about, but my wife wouldn't participate. My children wouldn't either. So, but you know, if you think about, everybody has layers, right? And you know, and so I think that, you know, certainly with regard to the product, and for us, the product and the company are still so related, but there's still room to grow in 2 different directions there, right? You can grow the product in different ways, and you can grow the company in other ways too. And that includes things like entering new markets, or, you know, or achieving new certifications like B Corp. With regard to the personal, you know, Scott and Kathy, those are almost people more who keep me sane. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from, you know, some of the other people on the panel, what they think with regard to collaboration across the layers of their businesses or their lives.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it, folks. Yeah, Scott.
Oh, so sorry, I didn't realize I'm muted.
You unmuted, so I assumed you were ready.
That's fine. As I was saying to you, Regina, we were starting to, you know, and during my intro, there seems to be different levels of collaboration. In some cases, it's driven by culture, by available technologies, by law, by practice, but by what the end users are actually ready to do. And you know, just getting across, and I know Kathy, you had mentioned this, getting across the different silos that are created by all the different applications. That, yeah, sometimes they make things easy to share, but not really. There's just something inherent in our business, in the software business, that companies want to keep the data inside the application, and it makes it really, really difficult to get the data out and to make it, you know, available for folks to share a common discussion on. It doesn't stop conversations like this, but practically speaking, I think one of the biggest problems in the justice world that I live in is there's a lack of desire of sharing. It's more structural. It's that the applications don't allow for it. It's that the policies don't allow for it. It's that the cultures don't allow for it. So fundamentally, you get people who are saying, yes, it would be nice if different entities in law enforcement could come together and cooperate, and they certainly do in a zillion different ways. But there's also all those barriers to entry that before you can do more complex things that I'm sure others on this call are doing. In my world, it's just getting visibility or access to the data at a high level in the first place. So it's interesting to see where my industry is versus other, say, more advanced industries, you know. So that was
the one thing that we could think about in that regard, and we probably won't have time to talk about it today so much, but what can we do to reduce those barriers? You know, what's the path to reduce some of those barriers? Dusty and Dusty, I'd like to add the word silos back into whatever you're going to say right now, because when you were speaking, I jotted down silos. And how do we collaborate and get past those silos? Yeah,
it's hard. I basically create the job I currently have was created because I don't really care about lanes. There's a lot of whether it's companies, corporations, in my case, a public school. There's a lot of people that, they go to work and, this is my job, this is my lane. And, we're talking about collaboration here. They collaborate basically with their teammates and that's it. And everyone outside of their little world is kind of foreign to them. Even if they share an office next door, they don't know anything of what those people do. So when I kind of started in this role, it was, wait, you mean to tell me we don't know how these people operate or these people operate or any of this happens? Or so those silos are really hard to take down. I would say you have to enter it in a very authentic way. And coming in from a genuineness, wanting to help and wanting to learn so that for the betterment of everybody in the system. Scott's talked about those barriers.
Yeah.
For his barriers might be very different than our barriers. It could be personal barriers that people just have up and they don't want others to kind of meddle in their business. But, kind of bringing it all back, the whole point of what we're trying to do in Aurora with Learnie is to break all of that down and no longer just have me not caring about lanes, but everybody. Like we have a bunch of institutional knowledge that we're just not sharing. And so this is a way to do that. It's a way to accomplish that.
Yeah. Helping them see that they're part of the bigger whole as opposed to just their little area, but they're connected to the overall mission, the overall organization and entity. Kathy, you've been nodding throughout this. I want to hear from you next.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, but what we're really talking about is a behavioral shift.
Yes.
The problem is people come in, just as Dusty said, and they do what they always do, and that's what they're always going to do. The only way we're going to change it is by creating an environment of continuous learning, a healthy diet of normal quality education. And it could be provided, sorry, Derek, on TikTok. But the point is that it has to be useful, quality information, and getting people in the habit of doing that. Just like you get a cup of coffee in the morning, and you turn on your news feed or you turn on your social media. Imagine if you could turn on something that is good and healthy and shared in the learning environment, where now you can have conversations across aisles. Somebody who works in IT, you learn something effective that's useful, or somebody who works in with human development and what they're doing. And so we become, create and elevate the general education of the population, I think, is a way that we can start to provide communication across the channels and, across industries. STEM was one of the greatest things that happened. Why? Because it gave shared language between workforce and education. But not everything is STEM. They want to make it all at STEM, but there are things like communication and operations and privacy and security, the protector part, that need to be included in discussions across industries. And it should be shared learning, so I think there's a lot that can be said for that.
Absolutely. Derek, and then Carrie.
Yeah. So one of the classic silos, especially in construction work, is that of between the office and the field, right? That's you have the field guys be like, oh, those office people, they don't do anything. They just send us out to do stuff. And the office guys are just like, oh, let's just go send the guys to do stuff. That's not actually how it works. But it's a huge cultural divide. And often what I see is that cultural divide ends up happening because people are lazy about answering questions or about serving the curiosity that comes their way. So you'll have field guys that want to make that connection or understand better, why are we doing this thing? This doesn't seem to make sense. We shouldn't continue to do this thing. And the office people don't want to go into the difficult work of explaining what's going on, or the office people are trying to figure out what's going on in the field, and the field people are like, well, they don't listen to us. We're just not gonna. It's like pulling taffy to get information from one side or the other sometimes. And so but you do have curious people, and if you see if those people come to you with questions, even if they're hostile, like the easy thing from an office point of view is, if somebody comes in like guns blazing, like, why in the world are we doing this or that or whatever, is to like shut them down and be like, you are not being respectful. You are not, acting your position. That is an expression. That is the purest and most honest expression of emotion that you can get from your employee, which is really valuable information for you. And what you can do is you can either just, I'm too busy, I can't deal with this right now, insubordination, whatever. Or you can really dig into that and get to understand the heart of your workers. And when you do that work, they're much more willing to dive into collaborative problem solving. And, that's one of the things actually my dad was passionate about. He did wastewater treatment plants, building, maintaining. And he worked himself into a position where he was basically a liaison between the office and the field. I ended up sort of doing the same thing with what I'm doing now, trying to bridge the gap between, the decision makers, the shakers of the solar industry, the people that spend the money on things, and the people that are boots on the ground, installing things, fixing things, creating the value, right? And trying to bridge those understandings. I just find, like, if you can find that bridge of getting people to talk, getting people to answer questions, putting in the work of like, I can't deal with this question right now, but I need to write it down and get back to it later, and I will answer that for you and work with that with you. I think that's incredibly valuable as we're talking about collaboration and breaking down silos.
Derek, if I could just respond to that a little bit, some things that I heard through that are elements that are really important: are leadership, people skills, communication skills, doing some team building in our organizations where we bring the whole organization together, not just a specific team, but we bring the whole organization together. Some of those things could enhance that communication, right? Starting with leadership, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. You create situations where everybody's in a place at one time, not necessarily for work, but for enjoyment. Like my company
Absolutely.
regularly does like quarterly cookouts type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's room for us to be in the same place and be friendly without having to think about work. And if you're able to do that, those communication pipelines come back if they've been destroyed, and they stay strong if they're there.
And we develop relationships other than this person interacts with this person in a business role. We create other relationships which strengthen that. Carrie?
Sorry, I'm not sure this is a good segue, but I was going to contribute before, but I feel very fortunate in my role because getting to know so many amazing, founders or leaders within different businesses. I love being a connector. I think that connectivity, and I love connecting, for example, one business, let's say a Learnie, with another business that may be interested in that. So with permission from clients, I love to do that. And I do find that this B Corp community, it might be because values are aligned, that purpose is sort of aligned, that, thinking of this greater good and thinking more of collaboration versus competitiveness, that I've connected even marketing companies with each other so they can learn more. And I feel like if we just take off sort of our, as you said, getting out of that silo or taking those blinders off and sort of thinking, wow, this person would love to meet this person, or they could really offer some advice, or this person could learn from this person. And I love to put people in contact with each other if they're open to it. And I think just being open to that opportunity is a big part of it.
I totally agree. And I do that same thing, Carrie. Like, oh, and it doesn't, I work with a lot of other coaches. I'm a business coach, but I work with a lot of other business coaches. We team up. We do master classes together. We do things, because they bring a different aspect to it than I do. And so we can serve each other's audiences, serve our own and each other's audiences. So yeah, I think that's a really important element of collaboration. Wynn, are you still with us?
I am.
Awesome. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, everything that I was thinking, everyone has pretty much said. I will say I agree with what everyone has been saying. I think understanding the human element is super important. Being able to understand the individual and not only the job or why they do what they do is super important too. That helps break down those silos. Some of the time you only know somebody by an email or a job title, but being able to gauge someone's personality and understand how they communicate is incredibly important in helping break down those silos. And I feel like that is a huge benefit to the community-based sharing that Learnie has. It also gives those who typically are silent partners in a process or even in a company, it helps them find their voice and get excited about learning and understanding beyond what's in their silo.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Pete, I'd like to wrap. Oh, Kathy, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to echo that same thing, that shared experience through the Learnie app, is really, really the benefit. It's almost like in a friendly, personal type way that people get to experience that, at a distance. So it's actually really cool.
Fantastic. And Dusty, did you have a comment as well? Did I see you unmute a moment ago or not?
Yeah, I was just going to pretty much say it all starts with leadership. If the leadership allow it, it will happen. And giving a safe space to do it. And that's kind of all I wanted to say to kind of wrap it all up.
Awesome. Awesome. Pete, how about if you give some final comments on this discussion, what your final thoughts are? Let's let you wrap this part up before we go into our wrap-up round.
Sure. Well, I think for sure, hearing from Wynn and Kathy and Dusty about, to a large degree, how they view Learnie, it's food for my soul very much. They get it. And I know in the case of, Wynn, they've done a lot of things with their company culture to try to really turn it into a learning organization. And I think collaboration is necessary to create a learning organization. And, there's a lot of evidence. There's a fellow named Josh Burson, who is an analyst in the ed tech in sort of ed tech. And he's spoken a ton about, how companies, organizations that turn themselves into learning organizations perform much higher. I mean, I'm talking about perform much higher in a revenue perspective, right? Sure. They, obviously they do better things and for the people that are involved as well, but they tend to, make more money and lose less money. So, it's not just a good idea to be a collaborative, learning organization. It's actually good business. And that's, that's something that is, to a large degree why we built Learnie as well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that collaboration is critical in to your bottom line. 100%. So awesome. What a great discussion. Thank you all. I appreciate that. So we are going to go ahead and move into our wrap-up round. And I'm going to ask Pete to run that wrap-up round. Pete, would you call on each person, including yourself, to share their final thoughts on collaboration and their contact information? Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And again, Regina, thanks for having us. This has been fun. It's been fun to get this group of people together who don't know each other, but I see them all on the same screen. So it's actually pretty awesome. So I'm
be sure and get a screenshot so you have them all in the same room.
I have my phone. So I'm Pete Mastin. I'm the CEO of Learnie. It's been my honor to be here. And, I would say, what I've heard today has actually confirmed my unarticulated suspicions about, all of these individuals, as well as, why I would have had them on a conversation about collaboration. Let's start with Scott as a wrap up round. I know, Scott, I'm sorry. I like those eyes, man.
Well, thank you, Pete. Thank you, Regina, everyone else. Just looking at the conversation we had empirically, there's definitely platforms like Pete's that help out, but it seemed like a lot of the conversation was focused on all the things that get in the way of all the different types of collaboration. So just by that measure of this group, the future is not evenly distributed. Some folks have applications, some folks have practices, some folks are open. But I think what at least I heard here is that there's still a lot of structural impediments to people being more open with their ideas and their data.
All right. Well, thanks, Scott. And I know that you're going to solve the problem of knocking those data silos down. Since we don't want to let Carrie be last this time, I'm going to let her go second on the wrap up round. Carrie, and one question I have for you, and I hope you kind of can address it. I would be actually interested in all, and I know you work with hundreds of B Corps. Something that's of interest to me is in the B Corp community, as opposed to say the general population of companies, how many of them tend to be more flat models and more collaborative models as opposed to highly hierarchical? Oh, and give your contact information.
Sorry. Yeah. So you can reach. Oh, yes. So should I tell you my contact information? Well, do you mind rephrasing your question a little bit? Sorry, I just got distracted. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I understand. So I was thinking when you were talking before, I wonder how many companies Carrie works with that are highly structured top down as opposed to a fairly flat organizational model. And another way to think about that is the more hierarchical, typically it's less communicative, less across, silo communication.
Yeah. I mean, I think some, larger corporations, they tend to be more hierarchical or at least have more titles and things like that. I think that some of the smaller businesses maybe are more flat. But I think that, it depends sort of how the business was set up from the beginning. But what I was going to say in general about collaboration, I think there is a certain, certain amount. We talk about leadership. I think also there's a certain amount of humility that's involved in sort of accepting that what you don't know, or what you don't know, or you don't know what you don't know, and accepting that to be open to learning from others and to getting help from others as well. So I think that I feel fortunate to be we're a certified B Corp. I feel fortunate to work with those who are on the path to doing so and or have already achieved it. And I think there is a lot of collaboration amongst B Corps, whether it be an example is Ben and Jerry's and Greyston Bakery. The brownies are used in chocolate fudge brownie ice cream, and Ben and Jerry's as a certified B Corp seeks out a lot of other B Corps to use and to partner with. And yeah, I think, it's been great to be on here. You can certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at carrie@impactgrowthpartners.com.
Thanks, Carrie. Wynn, you're next. I want you to give your wrap-up thoughts on collaboration and, what you think we've concluded today.
Okay. I'll try to make it short and sweet. So my takeaway about the importance of collaboration, I think by combining unique strengths, perspectives, and skills to achieve a common goal, fosters that sense of community and shared purpose, which not only drives your organizational growth, but also innovation.
Lovely. That was well said. Thank you, Wynn.
Mm-hmm. And Wynn's, can we get Wynn's contact information?
Oh, Wynn, give your contact info.
You can reach me at W Krogh at seeknow with seek/now.com. I think on LinkedIn it's just actually I don't know what my LinkedIn is.
Okay. If you can, Wynn, if you can pop it into the
I will
into
pop
the
it in.
chat or into
Yep.
the comments, that would be great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Derek, what do you got for us? Give us the TikTok version.
I mean, I don't know how to follow up better on Wen. Really,
Pretty good.
really, she really made it short and sweet. Innovation and smoothness of operation is, the keys for why we collaborate and the importance of it. But if you're interested in more of what I do, you can go to solarboy.com. I blog there. I post just about everything I do there, but you can also find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. If there's some way to make video, I'm probably on it. So we'll see you there.
You can also find him on Learnie, just for the record. But
yeah.
Okay. What a great show. My mind was zipping along with each of you as you talked, and I was thinking about new project that I have going on and how Learning would fit into that new project, and just really appreciating everything that you all brought to the show. So thank you so much for being here. Pete, thanks for bringing great panelists.
do we have time to get Dusty and Kathy? I think I left them out.
Did we miss them?
Yeah, we did. And I wanted both of them to give their contact info. Let's start with
I'm
Kathy.
so sorry.
No,
sorry.
it's okay. I just didn't want to get off without.
No, we've got time.
All right, Kathy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. I think that if we had a platform like Learnie where people could come together, we can understand our strengths, our weaknesses, and the strengths of our differences. And that is really what's going to create collaboration. So happy to be part of this. It's Kathy Houlihan, Dream to Career. You can find me on LinkedIn, as well as at khoulihan at dream2career.org. Thanks.
Awesome. I'm sorry
Thanks.
about that, Kathy.
And Dusty, you get the final word, sir.
Last and least, right? As we started. Well, ChatGPT says this about collaboration. Just kidding. So I think that really nothing good comes that's real without good collaboration. I kind of said it before. Leadership really breeds that good collaboration. So without good leadership, you're not going to have really good collaboration. So hopefully a lot of leaders out there can listen to that and take that to heart. So I think in the chat, it actually got done wrong. I'm going to just post mine. It's
Okay,
DD
go ahead
Burton.
and fix it.
Yeah, DD Burton at aurorak12.org. If
Okay.
anyone would like to contact me. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it pulled them together, didn't it? Yeah. In one of those anyway. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks,
Very good. Thank you. Well, it has been a pleasure to have all of you on the show today, and I look forward to finding ways that we might collaborate. Always looking for collaborations. So, and with that, we'll wrap up the show. Thanks for joining us today, folks. Please check out all of these panelists and Pete, and look for ways that you can collaborate daily in life. It is the most rewarding thing to be able to collaborate and change the world through collaboration. Bye for now.